Joining us now to discuss this further, Republican strategist Melik Abdul. Thank you for being here. Anything surprise you as you've had some time to digest and analyze the debate from Wednesday?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and congratulations on the network having a very successful debate. It actually was the best debate that they've had thus far. One of the things that I will say that surprised me is Nikki Haley. I know a lot of people. I've said many times before, I'm a Donald Trump guy, but I always thought that Nikki Haley did well. I would love for Nikki Haley to be president or even vice president, but I was really disappointed in her performance because Nikki Haley seemed to just shrink to the backdrop of Ron DeSantis, who, to me, surprisingly, actually had his very best debate performance on what was that Wednesday night. DeSantis really knocked it out of the park when it came to several of the issues that he, as a campaign and his campaign, would want him to focus on. I was surprised at how poorly Nikki Haley performed because we've seen her in the past be very as aggressive as the guys on stage. But on Wednesday, she just kind of shrunk, and she should have, when Chris Christie defended her, what Nikki Haley should have done is told Chris Christie, that's all right, bro, I got this, and just laid into whoever was attacking her, but it just didn't happen.
Right. I do think her body language in that moment was pretty telling. She appeared uncomfortable, and with the target on her back, she did play it safe, according to many who analyzed the debate. Inflation in the economy remains, I mean, ask anybody, the top issue that motivates voters when it comes time to voting. It got talked about a little in the debate. Did what was discussed, particularly what Nikki Haley said about her daughter being challenged by trying to afford a home, resonate? Did that get addressed, do you think, adequately at the debate?
No, and this is where the Republican Party is actually failing. If you think about even the rise of Ron DeSantis, it was along a lot of the cultural issues. He loves to talk about woke and critical race theory and transgender rights, but it's not really the kitchen table issues that he, even as a governor, can talk about. There's not enough discussion about that, not just on the campaigns, during this Republican president primary campaign, but overall in the Republican Party. Pocketbook issues. Donald Trump went to Detroit to meet with auto workers there. Donald Trump and the Republican Party needs to give a message to union workers. We don't need to be so distant from union workers because you can compete for those votes. On these economic issues, when we have a president of the United States now polling at 37%, 4 points above where Donald Trump was at the lowest point of his presidency after January 6th, there are so many opportunities there. And Republicans, we need to start doing more than focusing on impeachment, focusing on trans rights, and all of these other things, which are many ways distractions, because I can assure you that the majority of Americans will not go to the polls over trans rights. They will not.
There were a lot of big moments on that debate stage. Trump's fitness was part of a serious discussion on the matter. I want to play part of that back and forth, that exchange, for folks at home.
Here's
so
deliver you
big
fit. Result. We should not nominate somebody who's almost 80 years old.
Okay. He's afraid to answer.
No, I'm not.
You have to either you're afraid or you're not listening.
No, it's not.
There's a simple question. Is he fit?
Nobody can hear this. No one can hear you. They can't hear you. So you say DeSantis had a strong debate. Did he miss an opportunity there, though, to talk about Trump and his fitness for office?
He absolutely did. And this is the problem that I have with Ron DeSantis and even Vivek Ramaswamy. They're fine turning their guns on Nikki Haley. But when it comes to Donald Trump, they're muted in their response. And in this case of Vivek Ramaswamy, he won't distance himself on Donald Trump on any issue. If DeSantis wants to take on Donald Trump, then he has to take on Donald Trump and take right at the head. And he was refusing to do that. And I understand the balancing act of if he's too critical of Donald Trump, he'll face a lot of pushback, of course, in Trump world. I understand that. But if you're going to be the person that you say is the standard bearer, the future of the Republican Party, willing to take on the opposition, willing to say and do the things that many people want these politicians to do, then you have to take on Donald Trump. And until then, Ron DeSantis takes on Donald Trump in a consistent and substantive way, he will never get the respect from me as far as a Republican presidential nominee.
Yeah, Chris Christie, the only one trying to get the other candidates to coalesce behind him and go up against Trump. Some wonder if it is a lost cause. Malik Abdul, thank you. Good to see you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.